Hello and welcome to Pardon the Interception here with the results of week 7 in Gridiron this week with myself, Lee Wood, my co-hosts.
You got Coach Conrad Williams. I'm back again this week. Hi, guys.
And Coach Nick Taylor.
Okay, so exciting weeks all around here, and the playoff picture starting to be cemented in some of the leagues, with some of the teams clinching divisions. But let's start off as ever with looking at the GFL. So, Conrad, the first game we've got here is the Moscow Mules at the Mustangs. What can you tell us about this game?
Yes, I've picked out 2 games from the GFL, both of which are kind of top of the table, high echelon games in terms of seeing who's going to be winning particular divisions and that are definitely between playoff contending teams. Both have one real similarity, which is that they were close games, but where there were severely lopsided turnover ratios. So you'll see in this one, the poor Mustangs turned the ball over 5 times to the Mules once, and still only lost by 1 point. So maybe possibly feeling a bit hard done by on Coach Stevens' side, having those so many turnovers. You will see, though, that despite fumbling it 6 times, they actually recovered 5 of those. And really, the killer for this one was quarterback Head with his 4 interceptions. He may be quick on his feet, but possibly the decision making wasn't on point because those 4 interceptions really did for them.
Do we think that some of the Mustangs' issues could be the fact that at some point in their life cycle they've been coached by the coach that shall not be named?
I mean, they certainly had some funny old receiver quarterback combinations in those days too. But I think the 60 quickness quarterback is really interesting. That's the sort of scrambling quarterback can seemingly do a lot of things. You know, obviously scrambling away from pressure is awesome. And he can throw, you know, they seem to complete passes. They can complete passes short and deep. In the Mustangs case, they're really going to the short zone for most of their pass plays. They do a lot of rollouts though as well, because you know that's the classic quick quarterback play: roll out of the pocket, come around. You know that the formulae do work for a quick quarterback there. So very interesting, but turnover prone, and this time the turnovers really got them.
Nick, anything to add?
No, I think Conrad's covered it pretty well. Yeah, it's just the turnovers have been a big hit there for the Mustangs, but coming into this game 6-0, they can probably afford to take a loss here, and I'm sure it's just a blip this week.
Okay, and moving on to the next game, I think this might be the first time we've got the Wraiths on here. As we all know, the Wraiths win. That's what Dave Russell does. He wins at trading, he wins at games, he wins bowls. Let's have a look at the game here. And what a surprise, we have Dave Russell winning yet another game.
He's won again, although I will say in fairness that this is kind of the clash between the old game and the new game. The old legend Dave Russell with an immensely decorated career, up to the young upstart Coach Theo Whittingham, you know, the second generation coach, son of the famed Conrad Whittingham, and definitely on his way up. He's got a great team that is really emerging, taken the Wraiths to overtime here, beat the Wraiths in a previous season in the wildcard game, which I'm sure he was pretty pleased about. But this time around, yeah, again, it's a turnover story. But they've got a great deep zone quarterback here, the Gunslingers, just now based in District 12. Hopefully there won't be any heinous Hunger Games incidents in the near future. But 3 touchdowns, unfortunately 3 interceptions. Their wide receiver is just an absolute monster, this mini field. He's sort of one of those mega level elite 80 quick kind of players who is presumably by now a absolutely staggering level. Unfortunately, yeah, I'm sure Dave Russell was thinking carefully about how to plan against a deep zone attack and to really put the squeeze on Malvolio and Minifield. And that did lead in the end to 3 interceptions, but the 5 fumbles also certainly didn't help.
Nick, anything further to add here?
No. Much like the previous game, we just see that the turnovers have been quite costly for one team, and hopefully it doesn't cost them too much in the playoff run.
Okay, let's moving on to look at the standings here. So what I can see here is there's no teams that have clinched the division yet. It looks as though the Black Knights are on the cusp of it. and I think the Quake are looking pretty good, but the rest of the divisions technically are still there to be competed by multiple teams.
Yeah, NFC North looks probably the weakest overall. Although, yeah, NFC West is not super strong either. I think that the AFC actually overall looks competitive. The wildcards will be very interesting in terms of who wins those divisions and who gets wildcard spots. When you've got one top team on 5-2 in a division in the AFC South, you've got 3, 5, and 2 teams in second place. There's a lot to play for there, but you're going to need a good record to be a wild card in the AFC. In the NFC, you might see a team with a slightly lesser record sneaking in because of those 2 slightly weaker divisions. But definitely, it's AFC. You need to win lots. You probably need to be 8-2 for a wild card.
Yeah, it looks like there might be a 7-3 sneak in from the AFC, but 8-2 is definitely the number to aim for at the minute, as there are 3 teams on a 5-2 record in second place, 4 teams in total on that record. Nick, anything further to add?
No, I think once again you've covered it very well. The one thing that stood out to me there is I think that's the Steelers have lost again this week, and it looks fortunate for them that they'll keep their playoff place. But it's an interesting one to follow, because we looked at that in the last couple of weeks when they lost to the Circle, I believe. So yeah, maybe the Steelers aren't quite as good as previous seasons there.
Okay, on to the Atlantics. The first game we're looking at is the Stampede at the Sharks. Nick, do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so this is the big game in the CFC West, and was probably going to decide who took down the division most likely. And as you can see, the Sharks, who have been pretty strong, certainly against running games the last couple of seasons, with their eclectic mix of defense and offensive players, have really taken the Stampede to town here. It's another solid performance from their defense, and as always, Scardino, with his quick and strong qualities, has got the MVP award. Nobody really knows how to stop him by the looks of it, and he's doing the job. The main thing here, though, is Mumtaz and Siljeva, is it? Who are well known in the league for racking up yards, have pretty much been stopped in their tracks there with just over 100 yards for Mumtaz, which is very surprising. So yeah, excellent win from the Sharks here, puts them in a great position for the playoffs. The Stampede will be battling the last 3 weeks and by no means out of it. But yeah, all change in the CFC West, I think.
Okay, Z?
You always like a coach to have confidence, and Kev was not lacking in confidence going into this one. I'm running at, as I mentioned in the comments, about 0% prediction reliability. In that I went on the Atlantic Avenue and pretty much called every close game wrong, and in this case it wasn't even close. They pretty much did the opposite of what was expected from, at least on my side, which is it totally shut down the run game. And that was obviously going to be key. You know what's coming with the Stampede. They're going to come at you with a big run game in the I form. And you need to be able to stop the run flat, and you need to be able to stop the run line. And clearly, Kev had been preparing for this, and with the added home field advantage and his defense set up in the right way, he was able to do that. And once you can hold down those players to a moderate yardage, then you're going to get the win. And he produced certainly plenty on offense as well, just to keep things ticking over. Stampede probably not renowned for having an especially strong defense, and certainly not this season. So that was it. And they're in pole position now, and I'm sure we'll see some predictions of their imminent bowl run, at least until they run to the Stallions.
Okay. The second game we have to look at is the Sonics at the Blues. Nick, do you want to lead us through on this?
Yeah, so as you can see, the Sonics went into this game slightly ahead of the Blues in terms of position. This is an MFC East game, and I'd say most coaches probably expected the Sonics to take down this division. certainly earlier on in the season, that's the way things seem to be going. Sonic's getting some strong wins on the way. I think they handily dispatched the Blues in the first week, I think it was. And so I think a lot of people probably didn't expect this result to come. I mean, I started the season off fancying the Blues to do some work this season, and they didn't start off that well. But I think this just shows that the Blues are getting back to their best, and they're certainly in a good chance with a good chance of a playoff run. And I think they've managed to shut down the Sonics offense quite handily, and that's made the difference here, I feel.
I've certainly made the mistake of underestimating the Blues to my peril in one of my earlier games in the season. And I think the thing is, don't make the mistake of assuming that a quiet coach is a bad coach. Coach Hughes has not been chatting up a storm in terms of, commenting on games and chipping in with predictions here, there and everywhere. But clearly he's got a well-organized team. The players have been getting it done. The defense is solid. And the offense is not terrible, as you can see from Bertelli's performance in this one. So you basically, there's a lot of threat there, and I think we could certainly see them in the playoffs. They're in a strong position from where they are now, and it will be interesting to see what happens next for the Blues. I mean, certainly the Sonics now have a real fight on their hands.
Okay, and that takes us to the playoff picture, the standings. Conrad, do you want to lead us through these?
Where do we go? I mean, I'll just have a little moan and groan about me losing again. So it's a real struggle to see if we can finally eke our way into the playoffs from the MFC. You've got who's going to be a wild card is part of the question. You've got pretty much the teams that are ahead in the divisions are probably still favoured. I think on balance, the Sonics are probably still favoured in the East. You're going to have two wildcard teams, as you always do. The question is who they're going to be. I mean, we've got quite good fixtures at this point, so we could go to 7-3, but that, of course, requires at least one of the Blues or the Nighthawks to lose a game. So that's kind of some of your question marks there. Over in the CFC, perhaps Nick will want to talk a bit more about this. Stallions have clinched already. No real surprises there. Sharks are sort of cruising their way to their division title. Similarly, the Stingrays, to be honest. So that leaves Nick's division, the CFC East, as being the one that's still a bit of a battle.
Yeah, so I think, as you say, the Stallions and the Stingrays, and I'd probably say the Sharks are all pretty close to locked here. The CFC East is the big one. The Magpies were looking pretty comfortable last week, having dispatched myself quite easily, but then they lost to the Sun Devils this week to throw things wide open. They're facing another passing-based team in the Kings this week, and that's a big game for the playoffs. They win that game, the Magpies look good for the playoffs. They lose that game, everyone's in the mix in the CFC East, and the Kings are in with a good shout of the wild cards. Yeah. So that's a big game there. And as you say, in the MFC, we're probably looking at the Bears and the Mariners. Spitfires and Sonics, I feel, probably need to slip up somewhere to not at least get a wild card spot. And the Blues and the Nighthawks they're ahead in the race, but as you can see, the Nighthawks have conceded over 200 points this season, and that's a little ominous if you need to sort of win out to keep your spot, and you're probably looking at needing 7-3 at least, so that they can probably afford one loss, but that points difference could come into play later on in the season.
I think one of the things with the Nighthawks is they've lost quite a few players to injuries as well, and that's never going to help. But I agree, and I do like the fact that week 7 only one team have clinched. Multiple are on the verge of clinching, but I like the overall health of the level of competition in the league currently.
Yeah, love a surprise game, and as Nick pointed out on his Avenue appearance, the Sun Devils, sooner or later they will always turn up, and they'll shock someone. And in this case, they've delivered that shock game in the most recent week, and it's great. We love a surprise result, and it also demonstrates the competitiveness of the league. It shows that you can't write anyone off, and as we said pre-show, don't even write off the Meerkats. They may be 0-7, but they are capable of putting some points on the board. They've scored over 100 points. They can get you on their day.
And quickly mentioning Nick's Atlantic Avenue, I'd like to point out that we are indeed sponsored by extremetrades.co.uk, even though Nick, I don't think, is actually aware of this fact yet. Right, let's move on to the Big Sky. First game we've got here is the Fire at the Statesman. Nick, what made this game jump out to you?
First of all, it's a game that's pretty big for the playoff position in that conference. That division, and we've seen that the Fire haven't they've been getting their wins, but they haven't necessarily had it all their own way. And the Statesmen have looked fairly impressive when they've got going, as we can see here. I feel like the Fire have sort of got away with one here. However, they'll be very happy to have got that win because the Statesmen have put up 400 passing yards here and 30 first downs, but haven't quite managed to get over that line. And as you can see, Q4 was the big one, 17 points to 0, and that's going to hurt quite a lot. In this sort of game.
Where did it all go wrong for the Statesmen in this one?
Finally, I don't really know. Rasmussen is a big deal. I mean, he's a bit of a beast. Nine yards per carry, 6 touchdowns.
7-point game.
I'm not entirely sure where it went wrong for the Statesmen.
7-point game, -1 in turnovers. That can speak an awful lot. They had the ball more, they passed more. I mean, losing when you set a team record of 40 completions, you're not expecting to lose.
No, not with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. A great stat line for the quarterback. Sacked 5 times. It's not really such a big deal if you didn't get intercepted and you didn't fumble it when you were sacked. I mean, but that's a possibility, I guess. I didn't check how many of those fumbles were, if any of those were strip sack. But yeah, it's a tough loss to take for the Statesmen when they did so well on offense.
You also have some big plays there. Rasmussen's got a longest play of 70 yards, and wide receiver, is it Pretty, has a long of 75 yards. So, a couple of them. And
breakaways, they can change a game massively.
Exactly.
Okay. The other game we have to look at from the Big Sky is the Eagles at the Fulham Hollow Devils.
Bit of a Premier League themed game here with Newcastle and Fulham.
And Mr. Bates once again coming up a little bit short here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the Hollow Devils at all this season, and it's an interesting one to bring up because the Eagles looked like they were flying high, and the Devils have sort of brought them back down to earth here. The turnover rate is 6-2 is a rough one to take, but it goes to show, just as we were saying in the Atlantic, anyone on their given day can beat any other team, and it looks like Fulham is slowly putting a team together here that can win games, and Coach Bate might be a little bit disappointed to have lost this game, but I'm sure Coach Hemmings will be ecstatic that he's picked up the win there.
Z?
Definitely a very defense-oriented kind of game, or at least both teams are struggling a bit to put points on the board. I wonder what the Fulham Hollow Devils are previously called. Are they a renamed set of Sun Devils? Were they formerly the Sun Devils and now they're the Hollow Devils?
I have no idea.
Know. Yeah, I do not know. Unless they were the Devils and they're from Fulham Hollow.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can work out how to get there. It's going to error when I do.
There are some Sun Devils still there.
Okay.
In the LFC East, you've got the Norwich Sun Devils.
Which league are they in? Why can't I find them?
PFC.
Unless they, there we go, in the PFC South. The mystery continues. Where does the Fulham Hollow name come from? Answers on a postcard.
We'll try and find them. History.
Formerly the Angel City Devils, then the Amsterdam Devils, the Stars Hollow Devils, and the Fulham Hollow Devils. There you go. There's someone that was allowed to put Hollow in there.
Okay. Right. And then that takes us on to the stand-ins for the Big Sky. So once again, some nice competitive leagues. I imagine the Packers, the Rivets, they're on the verge of clinching here. I think they've got a playoff berth. Actually, the Rivets might not, given these two teams, but it's going to take a lot for the more successful Conrad to not at least get a playoff berth here. All in all, to me, looks like some good competition in a lot of the leagues, and as we've seen with some of the other leagues, the left-hand side of the table perhaps being slightly more apart than the right-hand side.
Yeah, some real legends of the GFL coaching in the Big Sky as well. Conrad Whittingham, I'm not sure if he still is, but obviously as a former Super Bowl winner, Andy Bate has been a very successful GFL coach and still coaching the Mules, I think who we talked about earlier. Martin Benson has just recently returned to Gridiron, having been a GFL coach. Aside from GFL coaches, I just noticed that Brad Ulrich is up there at the Seattle Generals and the PFC East, and Brad renowned for creating probably the most amazing creation team ever created in Gridiron at the Seattle Rogues in the Delta. In that creation team within a season became an absolute dominant force for a very long time. And I've never seen a creation team built as well as that.
And you've also got Richard Klein played in the GFL. You've got Steve Pinner who played in the Atlantic. There's a lot of older names here. Right, Nick, anything more on the table?
No, I think you covered most of the points. The Rivets and the Bay Packers you probably expect to make the playoffs, and the Shadows have looked pretty good. The Fire will probably make the playoffs, and our sort of fan favourite Tripson looks like he's in the driving seat to make the playoffs with the swarming Giant Hornets there as well. The interesting ones are the LFC West with the Massive and the Buccaneers, because the last week the Massive beat the Buccaneers in a quite a big game.
Does Tripson make the Pro Bowl, given that you can only nominate him in the running back position?
I hope they do nominate him in the running back position because it's thoroughly deserved.
I'm the same. People should be in the Pro Bowl for being great, and it doesn't really matter about QST or what they're supposed to do, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Agreed. Yes, it's actually the voting in that matters, except for if your conference wins, in which case it's then all about the game. Right, moving on to the Continental. So we have the Golden State Monarchs at the Kansas City Eagles, a 6-0 team versus a 2-4 team, and what could be said an upset victory here with the Eagles taking down the undefeated Monarchs at the time, despite having significantly less yardage, less possession, one turnover differential. A close game and a very unexpected result in the league.
They certainly didn't get a lot of yards. The Kansas City Eagles, for winning by 1 point and only a 1 difference in turnover ratio, they've done it with very few yards in comparison, but less than about a third of the first downs. They've clearly got something going here. That I haven't analysed it enough to figure out how it is they managed to win despite that great yardage deficit.
Special teams.
Good kick returns there.
Yeah, averaging 49 yards on kicker returns.
Including a 96-yard kick return for a touchdown.
Yeah. Special teams can win you games. They can upset even the best teams. Nick?
Yeah, special teams are an overlooked part of the game plan, I feel, most of the time. Like, they can be make or break, and I think starting so much closer to the end zone. I think I sort of discussed this on the Avenue podcast. Whilst you're closer to the end zone, you've also got less chance of fumbles and turnovers and what have you, because you just need to do less to get to the end zone. And I think it's quite a big thing that. So yeah, looks like special teams have made a big difference here, and a big final quarter for the Eagles there, getting them over the line.
Okay, and then moving on, we have the Patriots versus the Machine. There's too many E's and vowels in there for me to pronounce that. Once again, a close game. Yep, I'm going to go with that. Another close game with the away team this time, just pipping out the edge, overcoming a turnover deficit to win in what, from the stat line, looks like a defense-led battle here.
My hasty research indicates to me that Middelkerk is a municipality in Belgium, so they're a Belgian team now, Belgian Patriots. But yeah, it's a love-a-dour defensive contest. I think we've discussed before about people's philosophy and whether they like an offensive or a defensive philosophy. And given the choice, I'd much rather have a 13-12 game than a 48-45 game, just for that, grinding it down in the trenches and, having your beastly linebackers smacking down the ball, just some real grit and just punishment. That's the kind of nice defensive game that I like to see. But yeah, it's a good result.
Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, big defensive performance here. With outside linebacker getting the MVP award. Yeah, so I think you've covered most of it. Defense is my preferred way of doing things as well, and it always feels good to get one of the sort of close games, close game wins with a strong defensive performance like this.
Okay, let's go look at the GFC standings currently, and some very tight divisions here. I do like the symmetry of the UFC South 5-2, 5-2, 2-5, 2-5. But there's still a good number of teams competing here for first. The playoff picture in the UFC looks there. I think you've got about 2 or 3 teams competing for a wild card. Think in the RFC, the Express look like they should be good for a wild card, and then the Bullets are really in the driving seat, I think, for that second card. The Patriots, they've got the win-loss, but their points differential being in the negative could come to hurt them when it comes to the tie breaks here.
Yeah, lots more legendary coaches here. I mean, Ken Melvin and Johnny Stevenson, both like real veterans of this league specifically, and who have dominated in the past here, and they're both top of their respective divisions. Black Mountain Thunderbirds have clinched. Black Mountain Thunderbirds, of course, formerly Jim Lawrence's team before Jim moved on to pastures new, and I think is now coaching in the GFL. You got Dan Edgario, who coaches in the Atlantic. You got Pete Carl, who coaches in the GFL. There's quite a lot of again, great coaches who do well in other leagues. Chris Quantrell's in there, and I see Jason Race has strommed his way to the top of the standings in his division as well.
Nick,
it's good to see. Yeah, it's good to see Strom top of the division. As you say, it looks like the top sides in the RFC East will probably take their divisions. The Express look good, as you say, it's probably going to take the other position. But yeah, still all to play for a few teams out there. Yeah.
Okay, and then on to the Delta. So the first game to look at is the Patriots versus the Silverbacks. The Patriots in quite a competitive division at the minute, and were in a good stand-in to make a run there. But as we can see from this, in a surprising defeat to the Silverbacks here. Given the previous results that Holly has put in this year and last season as well, would have expected the Patriots to win the game relatively comfortably, but it just seems that the receiving core of Eugene and Batman just were completely on fire this game, and Dave Brown's idea of I'm just going to throw the ball and that's all I'm going to do has got him another win.
Yeah, this one comes out from my old playbook when I first started in Gridiron, and when I first started at the Stingrays. Basically, it was a team that was just a quarterback and a split end, and that was it. He got sacked about half the time, threw a lot of picks. Fortunately, actually, Caron here didn't throw any picks, but he certainly got sacked 8 times, and he mostly incompleted. He barely, he did, in fairness, complete 20 is not that terrible, but he only made 9 first downs because either if he's completing, he's usually going for a touchdown. You know, these plays have been going 60 plus, 70 plus yards when he does actually make the connection. And if it's a touchdown, most times you're going to be sweating. You know, after 3 of those, you know, what do you do? It doesn't matter if you're getting sacked as long as you put the touchdowns in.
Yeah, I think we've briefly touched on the Patriots in the last few weeks. They'd sort of been there or thereabouts, and they've always put up good defensive performances. Unfortunately, this time the Silverbacks have managed to throw over the top of them. I know it only says 9 first downs, but when you're getting 60 and 70-yard receptions, it's the downs on the so big win for the Silverbacks. Tough loss for the Patriots, unfortunately, but yeah, one of those games.
Okay, and then the other game we have to look at is the Plainsfield Colts at the Copperheads. So one of the most interesting rivalries in the league. Jeff Brown, brother of Dave Brown, and one of the hosts of the Delta Media as well, against everybody's favourite person to, I think, love to hate, probably a good thing here. Kendall, an excellent coach in both the Delta and the Atlantic, and the Colts, who haven't been the most successful team in their division in history, despite they took the division for the first time in franchise history in season 31, managing to get an upset win on the road here. And I think, as you can see by the number of stars in some of Kendall's posts, he wasn't particularly happy about it.
Well, I'm well on record as being a big Kendall fan, and enthusiasm trumps in this situation. But yeah, sometimes when you get really enthusiastic about the game, you could also be you're like feeling the pain of your losses quite intensely. And clearly, it didn't all go right for him in this one. The heap of turnovers being a prime culprit, with 3 interceptions, 6 fumbles, only 2 recovered.
Yes, and I think it's one of the dangers of the style of offense that Kendall is putting together is, whilst you're building it, you're going to turn over the ball a fair bit. Dave Brown has a pass-first offense, as we saw in the previous game, but managed to get away without a single int, which is unusual. But I think this was a solid game plan by Jeff that managed to put this result up. And I've got a wounded Copperheads this week in the Delta myself, and I'm not looking forward to it at all.
It's worth pointing out, of course, that turnovers are not pure luck. It is not exclusively determined by some random rolls of the dice. There are a lot of ways you can influence turnovers in your game plan, and we've alluded to that a bit in this episode. In that, you know, if the turnovers are being generated by interceptions, if the other team's putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, that will increase his interception rate. If they're sacking him a lot, that'll make him nervous and he'll throw away the ball, and again potentially increases interception rate. If they have amazing cornerbacks, that will increase the interception rate because they will be able to intercept passes more effectively. So there's a variety of different ways you can skew the turnovers, even fumbles. If the defense has got a lot of experienced players with this monster tackler attribute, they will probably generate more fumbles than an inexperienced defense. So there are ways that the dial can get pushed that are not pure random chance. But when you rack up 7, you can feel pretty hard done by.
And quarterback White managing to get the MVP despite eating dirt 10 times here.
He gets it just for resilience. The Iron Man MVP.
Okay, Nick, anything further to add?
I think you've got most of it covered. As you say, the big thing with fumbles is the defense can do a lot of work in influencing that. And I see it'd be interesting to see whether Kendall's still salty when he plays you this week, and how that goes. Imagine.
The answer is going to be yes. He's either going to be salty and rub it in my face, or salty that I beat him. Anyway, let's go on to the stand-ins. A couple of teams that locked up their divisions, which I think we briefly spoke about last week. The GFC, I think, is slightly more open than the VFC is, but the VFC has some very interesting battles in it. The VFC North, as I alluded to, has been a very interesting battle to watch for the past 3-4 weeks, if not the entire season here. Biloxi, I think, are going to miss out on the playoffs just through the fact that their end of season schedule is really, really tough. They have to face teams on better records than them, I think, every single week. I think the Hammer Sharks are going to be good. The Venom, they're in. The Lone Stars and Warriors, they're going to make it. The Rubber Barons have clinched. Where does that second wild card go in the GFC? A lot of people are saying the Hoff. I think the Hornets can do it. Their schedule's not amazing, but it's going to be an interesting one. VFC, I'm calling Colts, Sunblazers, Jets, Katanas to take the division titles. Then I think we're going to see York and Fallsbrook take the wild cards here.
Looks like you could have a 6-4 wildcard in the GFC there, assuming that the Hornets lose one more. But equally well, it's possible for either the Wyverns or the Cougars to win out, presumably, although I don't know what their schedule allows that.
Yeah, it's likely we're going to see a 6-4 wild card here. Nick, anything more to add? Yeah,
no, the East, it looks like it's sewn up, doesn't it? When you flick through it and you're like 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 7-0, and then you realise there's that wild card spot that's wide open, and there for someone to take. Really, I think any of the 3 and 4 or 4 and 3 teams that can put 3 wins together probably takes that spot. As you alluded to, the Cougars look in a reasonable position based on their points differential. You'd expect them to give it a good go, and then Hornets and Cyclones are probably there or thereabouts.
Here's a fun Delta fact. Simon, the Venom, have been knocked out the playoffs. I think it's 3 or 4 seasons in a row, and I think it's always by the Cougars. I actually need to check that because it's a fun little stat. Where are the Venom? There's the Venom history. So last season, Corpus Christi knocked them out in the divisional round. Season before, Corpus Christi in the championship round. Season 29, Corpus Christi beat them in the wild card. 28, Corpus Christi beat them in the divisional round. 27 beat them in the divisional round.
They're a real bogey team for them. They need to either knock that break that losing streak or find another way through.
Should we lock in the Cougars for that last playoff spot now?
Yes. Yeah. 5 seasons in a row, Basingstoke have been knocked out the playoffs by the Cougars, yet they still do not have rivalry status. Anyway, should we move on to the Empire?
Disappointed by that.
Yeah. So the first game we have here is the High Hunters at the Guyane Patriots. Nick, what brought your attention here?
I think Tipped is one of the 2 teams to reach the bowl this season, and so they've taken 1 loss, and that was to the other team that everyone perceives as potential bowl candidates, which I think was the Kings. And so we sort of not covered them too much recently because both of those teams have been comfortably going about their way and getting wins and putting them on the board. And then all of a sudden, the High Hunters have lost this game to the Patriots, and it actually puts their division wide open because the Patriots have caught up a game on them, and it's a game that people probably didn't expect the High Hunters to lose. Certainly with Postman Pat at the helm as well. I mean, he's been delivering the last few weeks, so he's been doing his job. But yeah, it was an interesting game to watch, and just that last quarter, the High Hunters couldn't put any points on the board, and the Patriots have taken this game, and it's going to be an interesting one to watch for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Postman Pat and his consistency or inconsistency in delivery, but I think it's fair to say we've never really said anything about the fact that the High Hunters have got literally a legend at running back. RB legend himself, who's scored 3 touchdowns, 228 yards, 6 yards a carry. He's the unsung hero of that team.
Names of players can be quite fun. I think it was in the Delta this year. There was I think an offensive tackle who was called Elite, who was actually only a quality player. Anyway,
overstated.
Going on to the last game to look at, we have the SoCal Rangers at the North London Gamblers. Anyone care to take a punt on the result here? Coach Dean, formerly of the Atlantic, taking it down.
I do love Gamblers as a franchise name. It is one of my favorite franchise names across all the leagues. I think the Empire is the only one with the Gamblers. It seems that they neglected to really make many comments on this game, though, afterwards, as everyone is limited to about 5 or 6 words at maximum. But nonetheless, the result is impressive. And North London got it done, mainly backed by their running game. Running back Nash scored 4 touchdowns and definitely did a job there. Their secondary running back, whose name is I'm not going to even try and pronounce, had a lot of yards per carry, but mainly probably on breaks. So he wasn't as consistently excellent as Nash. But yeah, great rushing attack from the Gamblers. Yeah,
this game certainly brings the Gamblers back into playoff contention. So a game they needed to win, and they have won, and they've won it fairly convincingly. The Rangers went into this game on a 4-2 record, I believe. And after the first quarter, it was looking pretty good for them. But then, for whatever reason, they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And the Gamblers have taken full advantage of that, and they've got the win here. And another division that's well worth keeping an eye on.
Okay, and with that, let's look at the current stand-ins. So, what jumps out to me here is the High Hunters down to 5-2, as we discussed. The Tomahawks having clinched when we all thought we'd see the High Hunters clinching here. BFC South with 2 teams battling it out on 6-1. And some super tight divisions in the PFC, with no team with no undefeated teams left in the PFC. And the Thundering Herd not having the highest amount of points scored. I believe we were told that they were guaranteed points once upon a time.
I mean, the Armageddon Kings got over 300, so they've been sneaking it in, scoring. In fact, they've got an incredible record of 314 points scored, only 74 conceded. So just domination.
I did guarantee points in the Thundering Herd, but in points in their games. And if you look at the points for and the points against, that's a lot of points.
Okay, fair.
I've actually really enjoyed following this season. As you can see, there's a lot of competition in these leagues, and there's been a lot of shock results as well. The Russians look like they've put it back together after a couple of losses in the middle of the season, and they've taken that second slot in the BFC West, where the Adence Lions, I believe, lost to the Russians this week after their little resurgence from 0-3 to 3-3, and it was looking like maybe they could put a playoff run together. Then we've got the Seahawks and the Red Bulls and the Tomahawks, who have all been strong this season. The High Hunters Patriots game, that's why we wanted to feature it, is because that division is very close now between those two. So that'll be an interesting one to watch in the running. PFC East, yeah, we've got Kings should win their division, and the Bounty should win their division. Thundering Herd, anything could happen with them. 5-2 with 2, 4, and 3 teams in that division. That'll be an interesting one to watch. And then the Gamblers and Rangers will probably be one of them will probably be taken down the north, and the other one probably missing out.
Z, anything to add here?
Yeah, I agree with Nick that it's a good competitive league. It's a league that has in the past sometimes suffered from coach turnover, and I think given where things are standing at the moment, I think it's in good health. I really like the Seahawks and the Red Bulls in terms of quality teams who I think are going to be knocking on the door come playoff time. Who actually wins the whole thing, I think, is much more of a head scratcher. I think just if you were looking at regular season dominance, I would say the Kings are the ones to watch out for. But sometimes the regular season doesn't tell the whole story, and it depends on who they faced. And I haven't tracked their schedule so much because I know we haven't featured them loads on here. So yeah, Kings are in the driving seat, but I like the Seahawks or the Red Bulls to possibly go through in the BFC.
Okay. Does anybody have any closing words before we bring this to a close?
We've only got a few weeks left to go. Everything's kind of taking shape now. Some divisions have been clinched, but not that many. I think that this is in many ways it's make or break time for a lot of teams. They're going to want to try and make that final push, see if they can win the division or make the playoffs. So yeah, it's everything to play for at this point, and I hope everyone's enjoying their season.
Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, similar to what Conrad. Yes, similar to what Conrad said. Yeah, it's coming to the end of the season. It's time to put the game over teams to one side and focus on trying to get those wins and get those points up and try and get those playoff spots if you're in contention. Yeah, and good luck.
Okay, and with that, thank you for watching. It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.